Before we go through the draw, it's time to update the power rankings. The top 3, Djokovic, Alcaraz and Tsitsipas, have moved up one spot, with Rafa falling down after a less than stellar clay season. His history at the tournament and on this surface is what keeps him so high. Obviously, for anyone else pretty much, they wouldn't even be in the conversation still. But you can never exclude Rafa from the conversation when you're on clay. Zverev stays where he is, but Sinner moves up on past Rublev after making yet another quarter-final at Masters level in Rome. This year he's quietly been putting together consistent results, other than Cerundolo only losing to the very best. After making the semi-finals and redeeming his clay season somewhat, Ruud moves back up 2 places after falling last week. Schwartzman stays at number 9, but new to the list at 10 is FAA, pushing out last week's newcomer Hurkacz. He's made 2 quarterfinals on clay masters, he's 10 in the race on clay and 4 in the race to Turin. In the waiting list, the next contenders ones to watch out for are Goffin, Kecmanovic, Hurkacz and Dimitrov. With all that said, let's get into the draw. Starting with Djokovic's quarter, his seeds are Brooksby, Dimitrov, Schwartzman, FAA, Opelka, Van der Wanschulp and Nadal, facing Nishioka in the first round. His second round opponent will most likely be Molcan, who has been having a pretty good year. He reached the final in Marrakesh and is joint 5th for season clay win percentage. O'Connell won a challenger a month ago, but since then hasn't done anything significant, which means I'd have Brooksby as Novak's round 3 opponent. Altmaier is interesting. A year ago, he was 150 in the world. Now, he's number 54. He's done that by the looks of things purely off of challenger results, winning another just last week. Munar has had a little more success on tour, but I'd take the German, to ultimately lose to Schwartzman. Djokovic's round 4 opponent will be between the Argentinian or the Bulgarian Dimitrov. Dimitrov did win their last meeting in Madrid this year fairly easily, but Schwartzman has never really liked it there. With Dimitrov only ever reaching the 4th round of the French Open once before, I'll take Schwartzman as he's 9th in the power rankings, got the most clay wins this season, and he's 5th in the race on clay. Nadal's section, he faces Thompson in the first round and Wawrinka in the second. On paper that sounds good, but in their 22 meetings, all but one has been straight sets. In the third round, the Spaniard will face Botic van der Wanschulp or Fognini. The Dutch player should get through, making a good run in Munich, beating Kecmanovic, Ruud, Nakashima and Gerasimov. In the 4th round, Rafa could face FAA, who hasn't won a match at Roland Garros just yet, or Opelka, who was in the same situation until last year. FAA had a great start to the year, disappeared, and has somewhat appeared again, making the quarters in Madrid and Rome. Unless Felix is on fire, I can't see Rafa struggling, meaning he'll reach the quarterfinals ready to face Novak Djokovic. I don't think there are any real upset alerts in Djokovic's section. Brooksby has Cuevas, a good clay quarter, but way past his prime. Giron did beat Dimitrov at Roland Garros last year due to retirement in the 4th set, but I wouldn't expect it again this year. Opelka in Nadal's section is the only one I see as a major risk, with Krajinovic in the first round and Tabilo in the second round, who entered the top 100 for the first time this year. With that said, I have all the seeds getting through. If Molcan didn't draw Djokovic in the second round, he'd be a dark horse. Otherwise, maybe Coric, or perhaps the qualifier Schwartzman will draw in round 1, but no firm choice. Tabilo is a dark horse, and again maybe a qualifier who faces FAA or Karatsev in round 1. Again, a fairly boring section of the draw for popcorn matches. Dimitrov Coric round 2, hopefully the Croatian can put something together. He hasn't won matches, but he's pushed some top players this season I think. He pushed Zverev to 3 in Miami or Indian Wells earlier this year. Wawrinka Nadal, whilst big names, I wouldn't really say it'll be a popcorn match. In Zverev's quarter, the seeds are Fokina, Isner, Fritz, Norrie, Hashinov, Korda and Alcaraz. Round 1, Zverev has a qualifier, but round 2 he may face Estoril champion Sebastian Baez, who's not even in the top 200 a year ago, now into the top 40. Round 3, the German will most likely face Monte Carlo finalist Fokina, but since then Fokina has just won a match, lost a match, won a match, lost a match. He actually made the quarters here last year, losing to Zverev in straight sets. The 4th round he could face anyone. Fritz has been out injured, Isner has had a slow year, otherwise there's a couple wildcards and a couple qualifiers that could potentially make a run here. Number 2 on the power rankings, Carlos Alcaraz. He'll face a qualifier in round 1 with either clay specialist Ramos Viñolas or Aussie talent Kokkinakis in round 2. Round 3 could see him face Gasquet or have a rematch with American Korda, who knocked him out of Monte Carlo just a few weeks ago. In the 4th round, defeating Khachanov for the first time at a major, I have Cam Norrie, but his defensive pushy style I can't see being enough to defeat Alcaraz. It could be a test, Norrie often is. I see him as the top 10 gatekeeper. You have to beat him to prove you're worthy. There are other players I class as that, like RBA, Seppi, Kohlschreiber, those kind of players. On upset alert I have Fritz. He's barely played on the clay and has 2 unknown qualifiers for his first 2 rounds. Korda also with Gasquet in the 2nd round. It's 50-50 between them for me. Well, the first half of the draw so far I have all seeds making the 3rd round. I think Dominic Thiem or Delian could be a dark horse, and Sebastian Baez maybe if he catches a cold Zverev early on. For popcorn matches, Khachanov and Thiem is a possible 2nd round, and Alcaraz Kokkinakis another possible 2nd round. Both could be really easy wins for the seeds though. Thiem still isn't there, and Kokkinakis has only just started his clay season. In Tsitsipas's quarter, the seeds are Ruud, Sonego, Tiafoe, Hurkacz, Shapovalov, de Minaur and Dan Evans. Starting at the top with Ruud, he faces Tsonga, which could possibly be the last match of his career, which is so sad to see. Round 2, he has Ruusuvuori. Then I'm predicting a qualifier, as Sonego has been horrific. There goes our first seed of the tournament, Sonego. The bottom of this section is interesting. Tiafoe Goffin round 2, with Goffin knocking out seed Hurkacz in round 3. Hurkacz has won just the 1 match at Roland Garros, whilst having the best clay season of his career. Goffin beat him in Rome, ending up higher up in clay wins and clay win percentage. Ruud should reach the quarters however, after saving a terrible clay season in Rome last week. Let's get to Tsitsipas. He faces Musetti in the 1st round, which is tough first out the gates. Fellow one-handed backhand, almost beat Djokovic last year before giving up in the 5th. Next could be a qualifier or wildcard Luca Pouille. 3rd round Evans and 4th Shapovalov. However, Shapo faces Rune in the 1st round himself, Munich champion. A year ago Rune was outside the top 300, now looking to enter the top 40. De Minaur has had an underrated clay season, but both he and Shapo have only ever made the 2nd round and the French, so this will be a career best for both of them. Tsitsipas ultimately gets through though, ready to face Casper Ruud in the 3rd quarter-final. Sonego is on upset alert with just no form, and Tiafoe also with Goffin hanging around. Evans could also be in danger with Cerundolo in the 1st round. Goffin is of course a dark horse, essentially being number 11 on the power rankings. Popcorn matches include Luca Pouille and Tsitsipas round 2 and Shapovalov Rune round 1. In the final quarter of the 2022 French Open, Daniil Medvedev's quarter, the seeds are Rublev, Paul, Basilashvili, Sinner, Buster, Cilic and Kecmanovic. Starting with Rublev's section, he has Kwon in the 1st round. Delbonis up next with Manarino's flat game style and lack of weapon not the best suit for clay. Round 3 could see Garin or Tommy Paul. Paul has had a disappointing clay season. I expected more, and even more so from Garin, but at least he got in a quarter-final at Rome, reaching round 4 at the French Open last year. Sinner, I've been saying, is an underdog this season, under the radar, mostly thanks to Alcaraz's success, but Sinner is 6th on the power rankings, 4th for 2022 clay win percentage, and 3rd for season win percentage. The only questionable loss this season was against Cerundolo in Miami. Otherwise, losses to Tsitsipas, Zverev, Hurkacz and FAA aren't bad. I do believe he's better on clay than Rublev, reaching the quarters on his debut. I think he causes the upset and goes through, taking this big opportunity. On to Medvedev's section, the biggest opportunity of them all. Starting at the top though, PCB and Simon. It's Simon's final French Open as well as Tsonga's. He's finishing at the end of this year, however, and by the looks of things it could be over for both of them in the first round. Medvedev could face a challenge in the first and second rounds with two players whose best surface is on the red dirt. But Medvedev should be good to get through. It's his weakest surface, yes. He's only played one match this year, but these in my eyes are good first and second round opponents for him. The third round, however, he could meet Kecmanovic. 4 in match wins this season, 5 in wins on clay, some of those wins coming against FAA, Berrettini and Fritz. Just like in Australia, where he replaced Djokovic, I think Kecmanovic has got insanely lucky and could make another major quarter-final. Before he does that, he will face either PCB or Marin Cilic. Both have made 2 quarter-finals to the French, but I'll lean more towards the Spaniard. However, Kecmanovic moves on to play Sinner for a semi-final spot. On upset alert in this final quarter is Tommy Paul, drawing Garin in the first round. He's simply had less than impressive results on the clay. As of right now, Garin is also my only dark horse in the mix. Perhaps a Rinderknecht or Bublik could be thrown in also. Popcorn matches, well, I wouldn't quite say popcorn match. Prepare for some long rallies, but look out for Simon in his final Roland Garros run at age 37. Vukcevic and Cilic is also a possible round 2, but other than that it's a fairly quiet section. So to finish off, my quarter-final picks are Djokovic Nadal, Zverev Alcaraz, Ruud Tsitsipas and Sinner Kecmanovic. Moving on to make the semis is Djokovic versus Alcaraz, Tsitsipas versus Sinner, whereby the finalists will be Djokovic and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Djokovic is number 1 in my power rankings for a reason. He's exactly where he wants to be. He is peaking, and with Rafa possibly struggling with that foot, and Djokovic getting the win over him last year, winning his second French Open, I don't think the Spaniard holds much of a mental hold over him anymore. But that being said, it's Rafa. He can win this thing without dropping a set. We know this, and won't be surprised if he does. I think both Rafa's and Djokovic's draws are fine, until they of course meet each other, then possibly Alcaraz. Speaking of, the young Spaniard has a tough one I think. A qualifying round 1, which sounds easy, but they're used to the conditions, they've got the matches under their belts, whereas Alcaraz has taken some time off. Kokinaka's Korda, who he lost to, Norrie, which is tough, you have to work hard to beat Norrie, then Zverev, who despite I think has a fine draw, still I wouldn't be surprised if he does go out early to Baez or Fokina. Down at the bottom, Tsitsipas probably has the hardest draw, but he has a lot of unpredictable players. People that could peak and cause trouble, but I wouldn't bank on it. Musetti, Pouille, Evans, Chapeau and Ruud. Sinner has a good draw. Sinner or Rublev to get through there, but he just can't beat Tsitsipas. The Greek is just too good on clay now. Both Sinner and Rublev's bulldozing ground strokes mean nothing on a clay court when Tsitsipas has the time. The final between Djokovic and Tsitsipas I think is going to be really easy. If it's those two, I think straight sets Djokovic. Nadal Tsitsipas I reckon in 4 to Rafa, and Alcaraz Tsitsipas 4 close sets to Alcaraz. Despite another good campaign on clay, I doubt Steph mentally. Losing last year broke him for the rest of the season, and I think he won't be able to get over it when faced with Novak. I think he'll be overwhelmed by Alcaraz, and Rafa, well, he's Rafa. If he gets to the final, I'm not betting against him. Who do you think is going to win Roland Garros 2022?